you guys talk a lot about in your last podcast about this Aquarian age and this awakening that people are doing. And, in having my son, I went through severe trauma. When you go through heartache and trauma and pain and fear to the extent that I did during that time, you have no choice but to go inward and say, life's freaking short. Like I've got to do what I want to do. I can't live for other people anymore. And, you talk about this awakening too, that's happening right now. You want to know why I think that is because 2020 came and life was no longer what we thought, like this. In a blink of an eye,
Yeah.
life was no longer as we knew it. And the fear of the unknown, the fear of what's next, that everything was ending. In some of those days, it felt that way. But then as the dust settled, people were like, wait, like life's still going.
What's the most important?
We had no choice but to go inward.
Yeah.
That's when we say, who cares about the fear? Who cares what the fuck people think? Who cares what we decide at that point? Like, I'm gonna live my one life that I know for sure I have.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of happened to me on a scale in 2018. So I know that the world kind of is going through this, and we can talk even more about that. But I just feel like in 2018, I had my 2020 moment, that moment of trauma and that fear of I'm going to lose my life. I'm going to lose, this isn't going to work. I won't make it through this. And then I did. And I was like, okay, let's assess. And at that point in my life, I had hit ceilings on 3 things that were very apparent to me, that were affecting my health, my spiritual health, my physical health, and my emotional health. And those things were the religion that I was a part of, my marriage, and my business. And I had hit caps on all of them. I had hit ceilings of evolution. In my marriage, I had to finally accept that I was never going to receive the love I wanted to, or that I desired, or that I knew I could if I stayed. And I would never be able to give the love I wanted to, desired, and knew I could if I stayed. And it wasn't fair to either of us. And to keep hitting that ceiling just hurt. We had stopped evolving. There was no moving forward. And I'm not pro-divorce, but I am pro-living your only life. And if you feel within you, follow your heart. I went inward. I said, I'm hit a ceiling there. I decided to get divorced. I went inward and I said, okay, this religion for me has served many purposes. I have grown. I've had beautiful moments. I, connected with my higher. I found light here, but I'd also hit a ceiling. And I knew that I would never be able to evolve or really love the way that I knew I could, and accept and share and be and make a mark that I wanted to if I stayed in that box. I couldn't. Some people can. Some people can be in that community, or in a community. It does not even just the LDS church, but any, and thrive and never have a ceiling over them. But I did hit a ceiling. I couldn't be everything I was. I couldn't feel everything I felt and stay.
Maybe you're becoming inauthentic to yourself.
And what happens when you're inauthentic? A lot of bad stuff.
Yeah.
You start to develop illness. You start to develop anxiety. You start to have panic attacks. And that's where I was. I mean, I was driving, would have to pull off the road. I would hyperventilate. I developed a stutter. You remember? I had a stutter for the first time in my entire life. I stuttered. I couldn't speak. I would go through phases. I was claustrophobic. I was strangling myself from the inside out, staying in these things that were not serving me.
Which is so interesting, because even going back to what they were talking about is ever since you were little, you came here to break the mold.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point it's okay, here's the mold, I'm going to break it. But even knowing that that's part of your journey here is so beautiful, that you honored that, regardless of what it looked like, regardless of what people could have thought about you. It was naturally going back to that childhood. It was like, this is who I am. This is what I came here to do. And it might have taken you this time.
It's a calling to listen to your heart. Stop getting into the energies of the shoulds and the obligations and the fear and the restriction and the pushing back. It's like, no, I want to live my heart with my heart wide open. I want to live it to its absolute fullest. And that's so important. I mean, I just so see the gift that you brought. It reminds me of the teachings of the indigo children. Yes. And how the indigos came in to break the mold, to break the organizations, the things that are done not from a core of love, but a core of fear, to help you question those decisions or authority or whatever that is. And so I feel like you just came into your family and it was just like, I'm a warrior, indigo goddess.
I love that. Do I get a crown or something? Or shield? I want a shield.
Yeah, shield. Okay.
I go like picturing it, but I appreciate that. You know, I also want to say that I'm not out to like break anyone's faith either.
Yeah.
Like I hope I'm an inspiration to listen, to go inward, to believe that God speaks to you. Like I had to going back to, I had to face, okay, I'm going to leave this religion. My entire family lives this with their being. Like my parents have given their lives, dedicated their lives to this religion. I am their righteous daughter who served a mission, converting others to come to this religion. They're so proud of me. There's this idea of what I am to them, you know, and then there's this, I'm his wife. We have a family, my responsibility to stay. We have a child. Like I should stay. I should, you know, my family loves, he's kind. We don't have a bad toxic relationship. Like why, you know, and then the business, it's like, I, you know, have all these employees that I gave this,
you don't want to let them down.
I mean, I still had the very first employee I'd ever hired still worked for me at that point. And to say, hey, you guys, I decided I don't want to do it anymore. Felt like I was betraying them. So then begins the crumbling, right? Mm-hmm. So you go into your heart because you have no choice. We thank God for 2020 really in the end, because I'm watching women dive into their souls.
Yeah. You're like, let me show you how this is done.
We're healing. You know what I mean? We are taking courses. We're
healing that.
Yes.
Wife you through this process.
Yes.
I've been there.
And I am loving it. I am here for it. I will always be a voice of your higher speaks to you.